Insightful podcasts by informative hosts. Insights into Things, a podcast network. Welcome to Insights into Entertainment, a podcast series taking a deeper look into entertainment and media. Your hosts, Joseph and Michelle Whalen, a husband and wife team of pop culture fanatics, are exploring all things from music and movies to television and fandom.
Welcome to Insights in Entertainment. This is episode 148, Swapping the Bobs Again. I'm your host, Joseph Whalen, and my patient and understanding co-host, Michelle Whalen.
Hi, everyone.
How you doing today, dear?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm doing all right. We've been out of the loop for a while here with the podcast.
Yeah, we sure have.
We've had a lot going on.
Yeah, that is true. We've been busy.
We've had marching band syndrome. We've had COVID syndrome. You can still hear it in my voice probably that I'm still suffering from a little bit, and this is almost 2 months after getting it now.
Yeah, we're almost 2 months.
Almost 2 months now. So I'm still reeling from its effects. Given the severity I had it with, I'm kind of glad I got my shots, all the shots that I did.
I was just going to say, we were all very fortunate to have all been vaccinated and boosted, and we were just about so close to getting our next round of boosters, and then we all kind of got sick, and yeah, that kind of put things on the back burner, but fortunately we all had a very mild case. We were all very fortunate. Unfortunately, you are still reeling with it, but not as bad as it could have been, obviously.
Right. And we have marching band to thank for that. We're pretty sure we got it from marching band.
Such a happy family activity.
Yeah. But a lot of stuff has happened. There's a lot to talk about. We're not going to get to everything today. We are going to talk about really two big things that happened in entertainment. One being the changing of the Bobs, which
happened actually on the same day. The finale of
right.
Yeah, so we'll kind of funny how it happened that way.
We'll be talking about Disney rotating the Bobs again. Then we're going to talk a little bit about The Walking Dead and their series finale and the impact and the future of that. And then we had a couple of events. One we just attended this weekend that I did not grab any of the pictures from you to put up for. So theater of the mind for our viewing audience this time around.
We'll describe everything in detail for you.
So stick around for the last segment. We're going to talk about some of the stuff that we've been attending recently. But before we do that, I do want to take a moment to ask you to subscribe to the podcast. You can find both audio and video versions of all of our podcasts listed as Insights in Entertainment. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Stitcher. I don't think we're on Stitcher. Stitcher doesn't do video. Neither does Spotify, as a matter of fact.
Probably should redo that list, huh?
So you can find audio versions listed as Insights in Entertainment under all of those. But video versions have, our Insights in Anything has video and audio. When you can find it, where you can find it.
Right.
I would also ask you to write in, give us your feedback. Tell us how bad I'm doing today, because I'm a little out of practice. Give us your show suggestions or conventions or other events in your area you'd like us to talk about. You can email us at comments@insightsintothings.com. You can find us on Twitter at twitter.com/insights_things. Or we're on Facebook at facebook.com/insightsintothingspodcast. Or you can find all those links and more on our official website at insightsintothings.com. Shall we get into it?
Sure.
Here we go.
So, the changing of the Bobs. This was some very interesting news that I know a lot of fans of Disney were hoping for some big change to happen, and last month it happened. So Bob Iger was probably one of the most successful CEOs in history of the Walt Disney Company, and now it seems that he's returning back to run the media empire. And this was very shocking news that basically dropped Sunday, November 20th at night. And what was interesting about this was that when all the other changes that have been happening with Disney, in a lot of cases, cast members were finding out about it after the fact. Information in most cases about the different layoffs and things, all people were finding out about it through social media after the fact. And a lot of the cast members were very upset that, they didn't get any sort of notice ahead of time. And Sunday night, I guess it was early Sunday night, an email actually went out to all of the cast members. So cast members were actually the first ones to know about,
as they should be,
all of these changes. So that was definitely a step in the right direction that so many of the cast members actually felt. Now, Bob Chapek, who replaced Iger in 2020, was actually stepping down immediately. It was like effective that night. All of the website information updated. It was almost like Chapek didn't even exist after the fact. It was Susan Arnold, who was the chairman of the board, had said in a statement that night, we thank Bob Chapek for his service to Disney over his long career, including navigating the company through the unexpected challenges of the pandemic. The board has concluded that as Disney embarks on an increasingly complex period of industry transformation, Bob Iger is uniquely situated to lead the company through this pivotal period.
Translation, Bob Chapek sucks, and we're bringing Iger back until we figure it out.
And what was funny was, literally the next day, the stocks, had gone up 9%,
still didn't make it up to,
to where they were during all of this, but definitely you're seeing, some of the changes, from what you could see online and, social media. Cast members were elated by it.
There wasn't anybody who wasn't elated.
You know what?
By
There were very.
Chapek got a golden parachute.
Yeah, he got a golden parachute. But that's the thing, is that so many people were, because I think one of the other things that was kind of looming was there was another layoff that was going to be looming, and now, as far as I know, none of that is in place. Now, granted, how long is it going to take for certain changes to go into effect? That's what will be interesting to see, and how many things that Chapek started are going to be undone. Because we know they're not going to get rid of certain things, but are they going to start modifying?
Well, and let's face it, he comes in, and if you want to play devil's advocate, you can say, oh, well, he came in during the pandemic, and that was really what burned him. But in reality, a lot of companies, everybody went through the pandemic.
Right.
And a lot of companies didn't go into the pandemic with the same balance sheet that Disney did.
Right.
And somehow, Chapek manages to wipe out 36% of that budget sheet after doing all the layoffs that he did, all the cutbacks that he did, all the penny pinching that he did.
Right.
He still managed to lose 36%. That's just an astounding level of incompetence that I don't think you've seen in business, since somebody bought a company for $44 billion and lost $20 billion the next day on it.
Yeah, yeah.
Twitter being that company, obviously. So nobody was sad to see Chapek go.
No.
Even Chapek wasn't, because he just got his contract renewed.
Right.
So you know he's getting paid for his full contract.
Mm-hmm.
You know he's getting a golden parachute to just walk away and not say anything.
Right.
So he's set for life at this point in time. He basically stepped in crap and he's set for life now.
Yeah.
What Disney, I think, is scared of is they've only got Bob Iger for 2 years.
Right.
So they need to groom a new successor in 2 years to have him ready.
Right.
Who's that successor going to be?
Well, and that's the thing, is there have been a couple of different articles that have come out with, the proposed, hey, this person's, ready to come up and this person's ready to come up. So it definitely sounds like it's going to be somebody that's already in the Disney Corporation, whether or not it's somebody that's well known by, other people. Problem was Chapek was from the corporation too, so...
Well, Chapek was from Parks.
Right, but he was still... And that was what he ended up hurting, so much of.
Targeted the most.
Right, which is kind of shocking if that's where he was from. But then, of course, you had everything that happened with Scarlett Johansson, and you had...
Well, yeah, he screwed the pooch on that one, too.
Right, so there was so much that got hurt along the way of everything.
Well, basically, anything he touched, he screwed up.
Right.
All he
the
had
streaming,
to do, okay?
Right.
You're coming in as the head of a company that literally prints money. It's got more money than God. All you have to do is not screw up.
Right.
And all he did was screw up.
Right.
Everything he got involved with, he screwed up. So to see him gone is a good thing. My concern is, who were the people that picked him in the first place?
Right.
They should be gone too because of how poor a judgment they had.
Right.
Because if they're involved in picking the next successor, you're back in the same boat. So where are you going to go with that?
Yeah. So it'll be, interesting to see. It's 2 years, and a lot can happen in 2 years. And, obviously not as much will be undone, because I don't think
he doesn't have time to.
Right. He doesn't have time to undo it.
He's got to correct the ship right now and
Right.
get it back on course, get a successor going.
Right.
He doesn't have the luxury of going back and retconning all the stuff that Chapek screwed up.
Right. So, again, how quickly things will happen, that will be, left to see, and maybe we'll actually be going sooner than,
There is a
later.
chance, I'll concede the point that there is a chance that we may be going back sooner than I had originally anticipated.
Right, because I even was under the notion, after we were just there in the summer, I was like, yeah, I don't know if I want to go back anytime
It was literally
soon.
the first time I felt I didn't get my money's worth at Disney.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've bitched and complained about Disney from day one because of
absolutely.
various things.
Yeah, and I agree.
Iger, I was down on Iger for the longest time because I think he was completely overpaid. Now he comes back now, and he was making about 54 with compensation, right? So his compensation package right now is about 24. So he's half of what he was at before, and that's the vast majority of it is incentive based.
Right.
So he's got to do something to turn the company around.
Yeah.
But as much as I was down on him before, you really can't knock him for some of the stuff that he did. I mean, he had probably one of the longest list of accomplishments of any Disney CEO ever.
Right.
I mean, this guy had more wins than Babe Ruth. He was just literally the golden child. And that was 15 years as CEO.
Right.
With a total of, I think it was 50 years or something like that with the company in general.
So. Close to it.
I mean, some of the stuff that he went down, Lucasfilm, Pixar, Marvel. These are all the acquisitions that he made. So it was incredible, some of the stuff that he's done. 2 years coming back, though? I mean, it's amazing how much damage Chapek did in the short time. How long was he there?
999 days, according to a bunch of different people, which,
And he did a lot of damage in that amount of time.
Yeah. And granted, yes, totally understand. Pandemic, that put a lot of strain. But I think that's where you needed to kind of, you know, everybody else is going through all these hard times. Don't put the hard times on something that is expendable, really. You know, nobody needs to go on a vacation. You know, they want to go on vacation. And that should have been where you had, you know, less of a strain. And what he ended up doing was raising prices, you know, for so much of the stuff that it basically became a place for only the 1% to go.
Yeah,
you know, they didn't really care about the value resorts. They didn't care about, you know, the person that, you know, the locals who want to go and escape, you know, a couple of hours a day. They wanted the people who were willing to spend, you know, a week there in their high-end places, you know, the Star Wars resort. Like, that's been...
That big giant middle finger to the fans.
Yeah, really. And you have people that are like, all right, I did it once. I don't need to ever really do it again. Oh, well, and I also...
At those prices, you
and
can't.
I spent $6,000 for it. Like, that's insane. For when I could go on a week's cruise for that amount of money. Why would I want to spend 2 days in an all immersive? Ooh, where now, you know, they have so much opening where it's like, all right, well, now it's this whole immersive thing. But if nobody else is there, who's there? Who are you going to immerse with? Right. Who are you going to play along with?
Well, and that was one of the problems that they had with the shift in philosophy.
Right.
And that shift in philosophy left people like us and a lot of other people who we've gone down 3 times in 1 year.
Right.
Whenever you've conned me into buying season passes. And, whoa, if you go 3 times, we get our money's worth. I get my money's worth by not buying the season passes in the first place. But for people like us, it wasn't practical for us to go down.
Right.
And they continued raising prices 3 times. Now, every year they raise their prices, and it's expected.
Right.
Whether it's justified or not. 3 times this year, this calendar year, they've raised their prices. They just raised them again on the local season passes.
Right.
That's insane.
Right.
So not only are they raising their prices at an enormous rate, and we're not talking 1%, 2%, we're talking 10%, 13% in some instances.
Right.
They haven't brought back anywhere near the stuff that they had taken out.
Right.
So you still don't get the ambiance. You don't get the experience. You don't even get, like, some of the stalls are closed down.
Right.
You know, when we were there, we went through Magic Kingdom. You've got stalls that are not stalls, but stores.
Right.
Entire stores are shut down. It literally looks like
that was like when we noticed it more so in Hollywood Studios, the one backlot area. Where the Little Mermaid show, that's been closed, so there's nothing there. Then they had the little gift shop that was there. That's completely closed. The Playhouse Disney, that's closed. They had a couple of characters, but that was really it. And that whole area used to have a whole bunch of stuff. Then back where the Muppet store was, when you leave the Muppet movie, that's closed. So they have all these stores, you know, and all these areas where there's nothing there. So you kind of walk through and you're kind of like, this is kind of creepy and deserted. And like you said, too, Magic Kingdom.
It's like Disneyland, the inner city experience or something, you know?
And then, of course,
I'm waiting to see, like, graffiti on the walls at some point.
and then you have Epcot with all the construction that was going on. Which, hey, that's great. But again, like we've said before, you have all this construction and I'm still paying full price for things that aren't open and things that are closed. Like, maybe you should give me a discount. Or,
but instead they're finding new things for you to pay for. Well, you need to pay for your magic bands now. We don't give them to you for free. You got to pay for your parking now, which it still blows my mind why you have to pay for parking at Disney.
If you're a resort guest.
If you're a resort. It makes no sense whatsoever to me. You got to pay for your refills now, too, because, I got to chip the cup. And it's like, how many different ways are you going to nickel and dime people?
And then Genie Plus. And,
that
whole
waste
thing,
of time and effort and money. It's just, yeah. And this is just the parks. This is just how he screwed the parks up.
Yeah.
This isn't even outside of that. The movies and the
Right.
terrible television that they're churning out on Disney Plus now just to say that they have fresh content.
Right, which supposedly that's one of the things that Iger is, like, okay, we don't need to have a new, Star Wars series every 6 months.
Right,
or,
right.
Like there's too much. Let's kind of turn back.
We don't need a
12
episode series of a show that we only needed 2 episodes of.
Right.
So.
Anyway,
the Bobs are back again. At least Iger is.
Right, one Bob.
Chapek is sitting on a beach somewhere laughing it up now.
Yeah.
I'm curious where he winds up. Like, where can you go after literally nosediving the company for the entire time you're there? Who's going to hire you at that point in time?
Somebody will. I'm sure there's some small entertainment company that would be willing to take him on, or something. Just
to have the name, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, hopefully it gets better.
Yeah.
We're holding out hope.
Yep, absolutely.
So we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and talk about some Walking Dead. We'll be right back. For over 7 years, the Second Sith Empire has been the premier community guild in the online game Star Wars: The Old Republic. With hundreds of friendly and helpful active members, a weekly schedule of nightly events, annual guild meet and greets, and an active community both on the web and on Discord. The Second Sith Empire is more than your typical gaming group. We're family. Join us on the Starforge server for nightly events such as operations, flashpoints, world boss hunts, Star Wars trivia, guild lottery, and much more. Visit us on the web today at www.thesecondsithempire.com. Welcome back to Insights into Entertainment, and now we're going to talk a little bit about Walking Dead. So for the longest time, 11 years now, 10 years now?
10 seasons. Well, it was 11 seasons.
10 seasons now, Walking Dead was what's been described as the flagship of AMC. It really was the anchor show for AMC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It spawned numerous spin-offs already. Finally came to a close.
Yeah.
Very different ending than what the comics had. I mean, the series itself had diverged from the comics quite some time back. I think it's like, when I think of series finales, the one that always sticks out in my mind is MASH.
Right.
The number of people that watched that was like record breaking. It was like people around the world watched it. I don't think Walking Dead had nearly those numbers. Why do you think that is? If it was such an important show on AMC, have viewing habits changed? Is AMC not a major player in the entertainment of this type of thing?
I'm not sure, because I didn't look to see what the stats were for it ending. But I know viewership over the years had dropped, because I actually had friends who were, diehard Walking Dead fans and got to a certain point where it was like, yeah, no, I'm done, and kind of checked out maybe halfway through, the 10-year span, 11-year span of it, and just kind of got burnt out with it, or it got a little too dark for them, with everything that was going on, and they kind of, were like, yeah, no, I'm done with it. And some people kind of
a zombie apocalypse during a zombie apocalypse with COVID. It wasn't the best.
Well, and that's the thing. But I'm talking about even before you know, COVID and things like that, you know, that there were some people that just kind of like checked out. But it was interesting to see the couple of different documentaries that they did, you know, talking about the fans and how a show about, you know, survival and the apocalypse brought families together, because you ended up getting people who normally wouldn't sit down to watch a television show together, watching a television show and becoming friends with people online because they were watching it. And that was kind of how you started watching it, because you weren't interested in watching it when I started watching it.
Zombie shows really are not really my thing.
Right.
But it's funny because as I kind of watched over my shoulder while you were watching it, it became very apparent that it was a zombie show that had very little to do with zombies.
Right, because it was really about human survival and human interaction and how
terrible human beings
how terrible we are in a crisis situation, and who rises above, and you know, who becomes strong and who becomes weak, and what skill sets do you have to bring you forward,
right?
You know, how are you marketable, you know, in this new environment?
What's your resume in the zombie apocalypse look like?
Not so good, I don't think. You know, and so that's what I think was kind of interesting, because again, that was one of the things when I started watching it. There was a friend of mine where we would watch it together, and we would text while, you know, like, oh my God, did you see that? Da, 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 da. And then it got to a certain point where they didn't watch it anymore. And I used to watch it, you know, in the living room. And then I was like, you know what, I'm going to go downstairs and watch it on the big TV. And that's when, you know, you weren't sitting there watching it. You were, you know, on your computer, and you would kind of, you know, you'd look over, and then you finally, you know, sat with me and you'd ask questions. Who's that? Who's this? You know? And then you decided, well, I have to watch it from the beginning, and you started season 1.
And that was a painful trek, going all the way back to season 1, watching it from season 1, episode 1, all the way through. I think I started watching with you in season 7, I think,
maybe.
And it's funny because I binged all those seasons inside of, I think, 2 months.
Right. And what was so funny was, you figure it had been 7-8 years since I saw it. So there were things that I really didn't remember, because it was one of those things where once I watched an episode, I never watched it again. I didn't go back and
it's a good thing I binged it, because if I had to suffer through that whole season walkabout with Terminus and everything, if I had to suffer through an entire season like that, I would have stopped watching the show.
And again, I think that you have people who maybe didn't start watching it at the beginning and did what you did and binged because it kept their interest, because they knew, oh, well, the good stuff is coming.
Right.
You know,
well, and then I did the extra homework, and I went out and I read on the Walking Dead Wikipedia,
right,
the summaries for every single one of the comics for every edition of the comics.
That was actually, so before. Was it before? No, because I think I started reading the comics.
You were reading them first, because you were reading the compendiums first.
Right, I was reading, because I had 2 of the compendiums. So I got up to, you know, the Glenn stuff. So I knew that was coming. And again, what was nice was there were certain things that were happening that I knew about, but I didn't know about, and things like that. And that's how a lot of the fans were, because there were a lot of fans that went back and started reading the comics or had read the comics to begin with and now wanted to see the show. So it was nice when there were things that were different to kind of keep you on edge.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you have the whole Glenn thing where everyone's like, oh, this is when Glenn goes. And then all of a sudden, Abraham goes too. And you're like, what? That?
Well, and, you know, to the show's credit, they didn't pop his eyeball out like they did in the comics.
Well, that was Glenn.
That was Glenn. Popped his eyeball
right.
out.
So that's where a lot of people were like, nope, I'm done, because now. But I think that was good, because then at least you didn't have a full blueprint of,
and that was the thing.
what
Like it
was to watch ahead.
It stuck pretty close to the comics up to that point, and that was where the big diversion started happening.
And that's where you had the divide
granted,
of
you
people.
started out with characters in the show that weren't in the comics.
Right.
You had character development with like Carol that was completely different. And that was freaky, the interaction with her and Rick and his wife, and that was weird stuff in the comics.
Right.
You didn't get any of that stuff. And I think ultimately it's funny, characters that didn't make it, either didn't exist in the comics or didn't make it very far in the comics, wind up being the ones that are there in the end.
That lived, in the end.
And are getting their own spinoff.
Right, and now are getting their own spinoff. So, yeah, kind of, I think you still had a lot of people that watched, and but again, because it's broken off into a couple of different spin-offs, it's not going away anytime soon, obviously. From what we've
honestly,
seen.
I think that was one of the things that was very anticlimactic for me was, all right, so The Walking Dead is done. This is the end of The Walking Dead, except for these other 2 shows that are going on, these 2 new shows that are coming out, and it was like, it's not over.
Right, because technically...
It was very straight. Like, when MASH was over, they had MASH spinoffs, but they were the characters in completely different modes. Like you had the After MASH, where they came back to the States and they were in a hospital or something like that. So it wasn't the same type of storylines where they're still in the zombie apocalypse. They're just in a different town or a different city.
The zombie apocalypse hasn't ended. You have, one group that's going up to New York. You have another person that's crossing the Atlantic and getting to France.
I don't know how he's getting his motorcycle there.
I don't know how he's doing that either. And then you have, the ongoing story of Fear the Walking Dead. I don't even know where they are now, because that was one show that I only saw 2 seasons of, and I kind of stopped watching that one. And then you have, the one show, World Beyond, that was just a 2-season, and that was it.
Well, and I think the problem you run into with World Beyond is they establish a quasi-civilization.
Right.
A military-based quasi-civilization there that is huge.
Right.
And dominant. And you've yet to see that really spill into any of the other ones.
Right.
It spills a little into The Walking Dead with the Rick and stuff like that.
Right.
You see
because now that's going to... Right. So now we're going to see... So really kind of World Beyond was setting up the Rick and Michonne.
Right.
Now, from what we knew, the Rick storyline, because we knew Rick was still alive. They hadn't... they had alleged that he was still alive.
Right.
Everything that had been planned was supposed to be a bunch of movies.
Right.
Well, now the movies got scratched, and now it's going to be a series.
A limited series.
Right. So now we're going to find out, okay, so what the heck happened? And obviously, we know it had something to do with the military operation that was part of World Beyond. So that was kind of like World Beyond was really setting up the whole Rick and Michonne storyline,
right.
With that. The whole going to New York thing, we don't know why that was happening and why the 2 people,
They got to have Kurt Russell show up as Snake Plissken to really make it work.
That would be funny. But that's the thing is, why is it Negan and...
Which they don't establish by the end of the season finale.
Right, because the only thing that we find out from the series finale is Rick and Michonne are, basically that was it. We don't know why Daryl is going to France. We don't know why, Negan and, why can't I think of her name? Maggie, thank you, are going to New York, because we know, at the end, Negan is married. He has a kid on the way. Is she part of the thing that they end up, You know, and that's the other thing too, is because they finished Walking Dead with kind of, all right, we've taken the town back. We've gotten rid of the bad guy, and, you know, now everything should be good. So why does everybody need to go off?
Right.
You know,
right.
like, you finally are in a good place. Why you leave?
Yeah, given their reputation over 11 seasons, it's entirely possible that Ezekiel kicks them out because they seem to ruin everything. They
you know
touch.
what? Maybe it's
They're
not
like, hey,
them.
You guys are related to Bob Chapek, aren't you?
You need to get out. So yeah, you know, it'll be interesting, you know, to see. You know, so you have the 3 new series. So you have Walking Dead Daryl Dixon. Which,
I really hope to come up with a better title than that.
You know, and now the other thing too that I guess it was from World Beyond, was the fast zombies. You know, the ones in France.
Right, you got climbers.
You got the climbers.
You got runners.
And you got the ones that can open doors now.
Yeah, you got the articulated ones, the guys that can pick stuff up.
Right. So what is it that makes him want to go to France? Now, that was also supposed to be where Carol was originally supposed to be going with him, but because they were actually filming in France, which seemed kind of odd during, you know, this whole time period, why you wouldn't just do, you know, a set or something and stay stateside. She's not going, so they had to kind of redo that whole storyline. Then you have the Walking Dead Dead City, which is the one with Maggie and Negan. Again, very odd
Lauren
couple.
Cohen, who, by the way, is from Cherry Hill, New Jersey.
Right, she was born in Cherry Hill,
our
New
neck
Jersey.
Of the woods.
And then obviously we have the currently untitled series, which will feature Rick and Michonne, which they kind of hinted at that during the last episode of The Walking Dead. Plus you have the returning of Fear the Walking Dead.
Right.
World Beyond, again, was just a 2-episode thing, two seasons, and that was it. So
yeah, so Walking Dead's over, but long live the Walking
really
Dead. Long live the Walking Dead. So yeah, we'll see where we wind up with it.
Yeah.
We'll see if they're worth watching moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to take another quick break. We'll be back, and we're going to talk about some of the things we've been doing as far as pop culture-y, seasonally type stuffy stuff. We'll be right back.
Insights into Teens, a podcast series exploring the issues and challenges of today's youth. Talking to real teens about real teen problems. Explore issues from braces to puberty, social anxiety to financial responsibility. Each week, we talk about the topics concerning today's youth. We look at how the issues affect teens, how to cope with these issues, and how parents, friends, and loved ones can help teens handle these challenges. Check out our video episodes on youtube.com/insightsintothings. Catch our audio versions on podcast.insightsintoteens.com or on the web at insightsintothings.com.
Welcome back to Insights into Entertainment. So we've been out and about. We had 2 things actually on the show notes today, but we have a third one to add to it from last week. The first one was we attended the very first Monster Mania at Oaks, Greater Philadelphia.
I think they've actually done one there before. We
did the outside one.
We did the outside one. I thought they've done one there before, but for some reason
I thought this was the first one.
I don't.
It was our first one.
It was our first
one.
So
we'll just go with that.
We'll go with that. It was our first one, and Monster Mania has always been kind of one of our local conventions that we're
not married to it. We don't go to it every time.
We were going kind of like, maybe we'll go. the biggest problem with Monster Mania was the venue.
Yes.
Because they would do it in Cherry Hill. They would do a Maryland version as well. And the problem with the Cherry Hill is that it was at a nice hotel, but unfortunately, hardly any parking, very crowded area. They did finally start kind of spreading it out throughout the years, but again, just in general,
you were on top of each other.
Right, even pre-pandemic, you were very much on top of each other, and you know, parking just not being, you know, and I always felt bad for anybody that was actually staying there as a guest and had no idea what was going on.
I think I told you years ago, I had a friend of mine who he had a cousin or somebody who was attending a wedding reception the same weekend.
Oh, jeez.
And they come down off the elevator and they're getting ready to go to the wedding reception and wherever the ballroom was. And all they see is all these people dressed in horror costumes walking out to go to the convention. It's like, I guess that makes a heck of an impression.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, so it's one that we didn't always go to because of, you know, the venue and knowing, oh my God, it's going to take us forever to find parking.
Well, and it was also a little high price for the experience.
Right.
We never really attended the panels, and it was always a pain
and they
to get
really
through
didn't
there.
have too many panels. They
Like
would
they
do
would do
a couple of shows, and that was really really it. So this time they were doing it at Oaks, which is probably our favorite venue of all the venues. One, because it's very spacious. Whatever we've been to has not felt crowded. We've done RetroCon there. We did the Greater Philadelphia.
RetroCon.
We did the Greater Philadelphia Expo there. And now we can add Monster Mania as well. One, free parking, tons of parking. And it's such a big venue that they usually have more than one event going on at a time, and you don't feel like there's more than one event going on at a time. The good news is, because they had such a good turnout, they are going back to Oaks next year. We did do, during, I guess it was last summer or before the summer, last May, they had done an outdoor, it was basically a flea market.
It was like a sweat lodge.
It was a sweat lodge. So it was nice to see them, you know, back here inside. And what was nice was the one area, they had a whole bunch of celebrities. So that if you wanted to partake in that.
It was set up in such a way that you had very organized, very large aisles for your vendors.
Yes.
Nothing was crowded. You had an entire other area for your panels.
Mm-hmm.
With plenty of seating.
Right.
You didn't have to sign up for any of them. You could just walk
and all
into
the panels were, it was actually open air. So, you know, if you happen to be walking by, it was like, oh, so-and-so speaking. We're like, oh, well, we'll sit down for a little bit.
Celebrities in the back room. They had the food off to the side. It was so well done. I mean, of all the conventions that we've gone to, I think it was probably one of the best layouts that they've had of all the conventions we've gone to.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was very happy with the experience. I was very happy with the fact that I wasn't elbowing people left and right. Plenty of space. Very well done. We'll definitely be going back.
And again, like I said, they've already booked it. They signed their contract.
And the number of vendors. They must have had, you know, 30-40% more vendors there than they do, because you can house that many there.
Right. Right.
They couldn't house that many in Cherry Hill.
Yeah. So definitely, you know, if you're a fan of the monster conventions, this is definitely one that
even if you're a fan of just pop culture, because of the increased number of vendors.
Yeah.
It wasn't just horror stuff.
Right. Right.
Which was really nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And they have, you know, a couple of, you know, other vendors there, you know, selling coffee and pickles and other things.
Yeah, but you had sci-fi there. You had typical pop culture. You had movie stuff there.
Right, because you always,
you had toy vendors there.
Right, because you usually always get a vendor who not only has their sci-fi or their horror stuff, but you know, they have their other stuff, you know, as well. So
before we move on to the next one on the list, let's talk about what we did this weekend since we're on a convention kick.
Sure. So for our second year in a row now, we have gone down to Maryland and gone to Ocean City Comic Con. You found out about this a couple of years ago through a coworker whose husband happens to be one of the organizers of it.
He also happens to be a local artist down there as well. And that's how he got involved with it.
Right. So that's how he got involved with it. So last year was the first year that we went. We made a weekend of it because we don't live that close to
and we had so much fun. I broke a rib down there. So
so much fun.
Didn't have that much fun this time around.
Yeah, thank goodness. You know, but what's nice is they do it around this time of year. And there's other things going on during the time of year. So if you do want to make a weekend getaway, there's other things to do. A number of the restaurants are open. It's not going to be as crowded and busy as it is during the summer. You don't have as many of it's more of the big hotels that are open.
Right.
You know, the little small mom and pop ones aren't available, but the bigger resorts are. There's one of the resorts that partners with the Comic Con. So if you book through them, you get a discount.
The Grand Resort and Spa.
Right. Even though nothing with the spa is open during.
No, nor is it particularly grand either. So.
Well, I think the room we were in this time looked like it had been renovated versus the last last year. But Winterfest is going on at that time.
SantaCon, you can do a pub crawl with a bunch of drunk Santas.
And SantaCon was going on that weekend as well, where I don't know if they do it on purpose, but SantaCon was going on last year the same time, so that was kind of interesting. The boardwalk, a bunch of the boardwalk stuff is open.
As long as you're not hungry, you're not going to get food on the boardwalk.
Unless you just want
fries.
But they're not open terribly late, so you can't do the convention, till 5 o'clock and think, oh, well, now I'm going to go to the boardwalk for a couple of hours. So you do have to kind of look to see what time, places are open to. We tried 2 new places to eat.
Absolutely.
And both were really good, so we would highly, recommend that. So again, for us, it's about a 2.5 hour ride, and makes a nice little, weekend, getaway. So
this year they actually expanded the show floor. They had 30% more space here. They opened up a back room. I have it on good authority that they're going to be expanding it again next year. They improved their food process. They improved their ticketing process. They're looking into doing online ticketing sales next year as well to speed that process up. We were very fortunate. We bought them at the hotel ahead of time, so we were able to get right in. They also are looking, not next year, but possibly the following year, to expand it to 2 days. So what's really nice is it's a great convention. And it's a convention that they're taking the profits and pouring it back into it and making it better and better.
Yeah.
So just over 2 years of going, we've seen it get better, and they're making it even better after that. So it's a local convention run by locals, but it's people who are passionate.
Right.
It's local artists who are running it.
Yeah.
So they know what a convention needs to have to be successful.
Right.
So it's kind of a breath of fresh air to see that kind of thing. It's not some corporate conglomeration who's just out there churning out conventions to make money. It's people who are there at the conventions, which you can really tell the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that, that we commented on, and when you had talked to, your coworker about it, they, said, that was kind of the point. Most conventions that you go to, you have, here's this vendor aisle and this vendor aisle, and here's all of our artists. We kind of put them in Artist Alley, away. And you have a lot of people that never even go down Artist Alley because they're not interested in all of that. And, and in some cases it's a shame because there's some really good artists there, that just want to be recognized. And what was nice was here, they mixed them in with everybody else. So it wasn't here is just the vendor selling this, and here's just the people doing this. Here's a mix of everything.
Absolutely.
So you'd have, an artist next to somebody else. So if it was something that you weren't interested in the artist, okay, so you walk right past them, or you give a nod and you look at the next person. Or maybe because you're looking at the one vendor, oh, there's an artist here. Oh, let me look and see what you have. So that was kind of nice that it was kind of blended a little bit better than some of the other, conventions that we've gone to.
So Ocean City Comic Con, definitely recommend it again. Before we do go, let's talk seasonal stuff.
Sure.
We've done one so far. We may be doing another one this weekend. What did we do so far?
So we did Night of Lights at Creamy Acres. So this was one that when they started doing the lights, it was only a wagon ride through. You weren't driving through. So you had to be in one of their wagons riding through. And then with the pandemic, they changed it over so that you could drive your own car. So this year they actually brought back the wagons, but you're still able to drive your car through, which is nice because then you don't have to, especially if it's cold or the weather is questionable, you don't have to worry about.
Or if their music is terrible.
Right. Then you can listen to your own music. So this is one that we've done the past couple of years. It's a little local for us. And what's nice is after, you're done going through, they do have a little shop area. You can go and see Santa. They do have fire pits now, because I think last year, I don't think they were doing fire pits just yet.
No.
I can't remember. So they had fire pits. You could buy a little s'mores kit, which was $4 or something to make 2 s'mores. But hey, but they had a little bit more food available. They had like a bakery area, and then they had, cheesesteaks and chicken fingers and, some fried stuff.
All that Christmassy food.
And then they have a couple of characters, walking around. Creepy characters. But it's nice because it's a local farm that does this. You can buy your tickets online, or you can buy them there. And, a nice little enjoyable drive-through, Christmas light display.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot. What are we doing this weekend?
So we are probably, depending on what the weather is, I'm guessing maybe Shady Brook.
Yeah, probably.
We also are fortunate enough that Diggerland, which they happen to do a drive-through one as well, so maybe we'll give them a try.
Well, and Shady Brook is probably the biggest in our area. That one's up in Bucks County,
right,
Pennsylvania.
Right, that one's further for us to go to, and depending on what the weather is like.
And usually what we'll do is if it's a decent day, we'll go up, we'll hit Peddler's Village, we'll stay there, we'll hit there in late afternoon. They turn their lights on fairly early, you get to enjoy those lights, and then on the way home,
we drive.
We'll hit Shady Brook.
Right, and if, because I think the last time we went, I think it started raining when we got done, so we didn't do any of the fire pits, because that's another thing too, is they started having fire pits, but you actually had to make reservations, or they had private
ones you could do,
but they had public ones too.
We had to fight for a couple cheeks on the bench.
Right. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
It's always that fun part of fighting around the fire that we love to do around the holidays.
But now we have our own, fire pit. So
right. We have to assemble that this weekend.
We have to assemble that this
weekend. Find
weekend.
stuff to burn. We'll be throwing furniture and stuff in there.
So if you got anything you need to burn,
bring it over. Just make sure it's cut down real small.
Right.
It's not a big pit. So anyway, I think that's all we had for the show this week. Hopefully we'll be back on a regular cadence moving forward now.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see about that. I took a couple of weeks off because I just wasn't feeling up to it. So
right.
Moving forward, hopefully we'll be a little more. Before we do go, though, I do once again want to ask you to subscribe to the podcast. You can find audio and video versions of our podcast listed as Insights into Things We're available on Pandora, Castro, Stitcher, Podbean, Buzzsprout, any place you can find a podcast these days. You can also find this show listed as Insights into Entertainment as well on your podcast listings. Feel free to email us, write into us at comments@insightsintothings.com. Hit us up on Twitter. We do accept DMs if you want to send some over with suggestions or just feedback on how we're doing. You can hit us at twitter.com/insights_things. I'm stealing all your lines here, aren't I?
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
You're next. You do the rest.
So you can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Insights Into Things podcast. You can find us on Instagram if I ever decide to post there again, on Instagram.com/Insights Into Things. But obviously the best place to go would be our official website, which has links to everything that we do. And that is insightsintothings.com.
That's it. Another one in the books.
Have a good week, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.